Hi, welcome to a newest episode of Sports Talk Central. I'm your host, Deep Mahmood, with my normal co-host Hunter, and today we're going to be talking a little bit baseball. And obviously, before we were going to be talking about the debacle that was Arson Judge Part 2 yesterday, but there's a step aside LeBron. There's a new superstar there's a new rich superstar in the Dodgers with Shohei Ohtani getting not 400, not 500, not 600, but $700 million. I wasn't
That is
surprised.
more money than an NHL franchise in the Arizona Coyotes is worth. The Pittsburgh Penguins were just purchased. We all know how much it eat. $900 million they went for. He only got $200 million less than that. And that's one of the top franchises in the league.
Him, Mookie Betts, and Freddie Freeman are worth more than the Penguins.
Yes, they are. Those three together make more money than the Pittsburgh Penguins were just sold for, and they have 5 Stanley Cups. It is insane to me. It is that $700 million contract is more than some teams' payrolls for the season. And that just makes my hatred for the Dodgers grow that much more. I can't stand that organization overall. I've never really liked them. I can't stand them, especially now. It is insane that they have that kind of money to pay Ohtani Betts. Because how much did they sign Betts for again? Do you have that number off the top of your head? Because it was a crap ton of money. And then Freddie Freeman is obviously getting a crap ton of money too.
Freeman got around 150.
I will credit Dave Roberts. He said what his team needed. Everyone laughed because, the Dodgers are very talented, but they still went out there and got their guy. Like, I will give credit to Dave Roberts. How much was Mookie Betts?
$365 million.
$700 million plus $365 million. Over $1 billion to 2 players. I wish I had that kind of money in my life, Adit. Don't you? Don't you wish you had over $1 billion to give to 2 people? What an ownership, man. That is, I can't even put that into words.
And it's deferred. A lot of the money is deferred.
And kudos to Ohtani for agreeing to that. The Nationals as one of the teams, they're not in Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes. I'm just putting a comparison here. When they would sign big free agents, not like this.
Scherzer was 14 years, but it was 14 years, but it was the contract was 7.
Right. Yeah. They would defer a lot of the money. They did it for Strasburg. They did it for Harper when they signed him, but not with the latest contract. But when they signed a big free agent, they would defer a lot of money. You see this to a very much extreme right now in Ohtani. So that's smart for him because it allows the Dodgers to put a competitive team around him. I will say I will laugh my butt off if this results in the Dodgers continuing to choke almost every single year. The only World Series title that they've won since 88 was a shortened season. So, I mean, pressure's on now. You have all the talent in the world. I don't want to see any more excuses from this team. There were no excuses this past year to get swept by the Diamondbacks. There are especially no excuses now with this. And Adit, let's just say this. Mike Trout, please leave. Please, just get out. Ask for a trade. Go to a team that actually wants to support you because you've missed the playoffs in 12 of 13 years that you've been with the Angels. Please leave. Go request a trade and go somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, depending on how many years Castellanos has left, I'm sure they could just take the Phillies could take Castellanos and bring Mike Trout back home, or the Mets could bring. I just feel like those would be the two. Like if Trout were to request a trade, that's what they would do.
The Phillies make a lot of sense for him.
Yeah, but also the Mets. I mean, well, let me ask you a question: would you rather have Pete Alonso on a long-term deal, or Mike Trout but mid-30s?
I'd honestly maybe go Trout because he's still better than Alonso at this age.
Yeah, so that's my point. Like maybe the Phillies could drop Castellanos if they wanted to and bring in Mike Trout, or the Mets could swap out Alonso for Mike Trout, and Mets fans wouldn't care. Like they like Pete Alonso, but if it frees up the space for Mike Trout, that's huge there. I think you said everything. How do you like? First of all,
It's just nuts, man. Like
send the prayer to your Blue Jay if you have friends that are Blue Jay fans. They were in on Soto. He went to the Yankees, and we'll get more on Juan Soto later. They were in on Ohtani. Everyone was tracking a plane yesterday.
College football flight tracker season, man. That's what that was. That was college football flight tracker season. And Adit, I don't think John Morosi is ever allowed near Toronto for the rest of his life.
You know the best part about that flight tracker situation was? That plane, first of all, double check to make sure that it is Ohtani on that plane. For all we know, he could have taken something like American Airlines or Southwest Airlines, one of those to do it. Now, but the best part is the person on that plane was a guy on Shark Tank. Like one of the billionaires, Robert something, I can't say his last name. He was on Shark Tank. And you know what they say on Shark Tank when there's a bad deal? For that reason, I'm out. How many Blue Jay fans are looking at John Paul on Morosi and the Blue Jays front office saying, for Morosi saying, for all that trapping you had us do, I'm out. I'm not trusting you.
That's such a tough thing to get wrong too. You put your name out there, you say your sources, oh, he's flying into Toronto today. That gets the entire Toronto city going crazy. You have the Maple Leafs, obviously, that dominates that.
Yet Kikuchi was apparently he had like 50 people. And then you had all of that. It was like, nope.
You cannot get that wrong, man. You cannot get that wrong. And obviously you have the Castellanos meme. That's just hilarious in any sort of situation that people were going nuts about that. But that's just something that
the Ohtani jersey kind of may have been doomed.
I know. It's just something you can't get wrong. I felt bad for him also at the same time because I'm sure he feels like crap too. But yeah, the Jays, man, they've been waiting to get their next superstar. Like you can tell these last couple of years, they want their hands on one. You miss on Soto, you're a finalist for Ohtani. They probably offered him a good contract. They 100% did. But not what the Dodgers could, that's for sure. And it's just like with the Dodgers, one more thing, it's just a boring choice. Like that's all. Like,
do you believe in their pitching? Because that's going to be the thing that because Kershaw's out until July.
Right. I mean, if they sign Kershaw back, I mean, he's out until the summer. You have Buehler, who's coming back from Tommy John, right, Adit? He's coming back next year. So you have him, but
Bobby Miller's not bad, but he's a second-year guy.
Yeah, I mean, Buehler's your ace when he's healthy. I mean, Kershaw can still go, but do you trust him in the playoffs? I don't. I mean, he's never had that reputation. The rest of your staff is fine, but they're going to be reliant on their hitting. Like that's what they have a lot of their money tied up into that. And they're going to, I think, honestly, in a low-key kind of way, live and die by that, to be honest. So
what's really scary? What's really scary about pitching, what they could do? Andrew Friedman was with the Tampa Bay Rays. Tampa Bay Rays could be trading Tyler Glasnow. Now, granted, he's owed $25 million. So could they take on even more money next year? Possibly. If they could be trying to go, they could be going after Glasnow. They could be going after Dylan Cease. I don't think they're not going after Yamamoto. Yeah, the Japanese.
A lot of money.
He's getting at least 300 at this point. It's probably going to be between the Mets or the Yankees. Apparently, the Blue Jays are also in on him. I don't think he's going to go there. But I wouldn't be surprised if Glasnow gets traded there. I wouldn't be surprised if they trade for someone. I also wouldn't be surprised if they bring back a Lucas Giolito back to where he's from, or they were to bring back some of those guys. Because pitching-wise, they could go the long-term route. They could trade. They could go and find a dependable arm, like on a one-year deal. Blake Snell could be interesting for them. Blake Snell could be possible. I could see Blake Snell going there. I could see Giolito going. They have guys that can go there. But yeah, I think it's going to this offense, no excuses. If their pitching is average, they're going to be competitive. But the Dodgers, we've always said this about the Dodgers last few years. great roster, good on paper. They haven't really progressed far. They've only won one World Series. So let's see what happens there.
Well,
After
one
the-
since '88, I should say. We should say.
Yeah.
I mean, they've had some.
Yeah, they've had success, but recently it's
Yeah.
always been all promise, but not many
Right.
results.
They have the short World Series run. Outside of that, though, it's time to go. Like you want to claim yourself, and you be the richest team in baseball. You pay all this money for all these players. Show in the postseason. Like that's what everyone cares about.
Yeah, and I think if you want to go more to like the Blue Jays, it's gonna be interesting what they do here. They could go Cody Bellinger. They could go Jorge Soler. They're gonna need a bat. But man, if the Blue Jays did get Ohtani, it would have been they could have been a second or third best team in the AL East. It just feels like you had promise and it was just ripped away from you because I don't think they're getting Yamamoto. I don't think they're going to get. They didn't get Ohtani. They didn't get Soto. It's going to be really interesting. It's going to be really rough. Speaking of Juan Soto, he gets traded to the New York Yankees. Him and Trent Grisham for a few pitchers. This was probably the worst kept secret for a while that he was going to go to that team. I don't think, okay, this is a hot take. I don't think they are the top there. They are the team to beat in the AL East. I think it's either Baltimore or Tampa because I just trust what they have done. I think Baltimore still has that farm system. Tampa, they can trade Glass now and they can go get another really good pitcher for the next few years. Even they just have that factory of talent. Yankees, I will say they got better. Verdugo, that trade for Verdugo, Grisham, and Soto, 3 lefty bats. Their
lineup is just so good, though, man. Like Stanton, Judge, Soto, Grisham.
Yeah, and the lefty presence, like balancing out more with the lefties, is going to help them. Pitching wise, it's going to be really a struggle for them. You have Cole,
I guess.
Cortez, Carlos Rodon. You don't know what you're getting from him, and you traded away a bunch of your pitching prospects. So it's going to be interesting. I think they're going to be competitive in the American League. But let's see what happens. And if this is a rental, this might be one of the – do you think this is a rental for them?
It might be. I mean, but it shouldn't be, right? You're one of the richest teams, if not arguably the richest team in baseball. I don't think you're paying all that, the prospects and all that good stuff for just 1 year of Juan Soto. Now, Padres obviously did because they knew they weren't going to be able to sign him. They were going all in to win it with the roster they had. Funny enough, the Washington Nationals, I still think, came out of that trade looking pretty good because he only lasted there for a little over a year. But you bet, I don't think with everything they gave up, that's a rental. I think they're going to do everything in their power to sign him before he becomes.
So I think they will. It's just Scott Boras as the agent. And depending on if it's another,
it is the Yankees though. Like it is the Yankees. So
yeah, it's gonna be interesting. So I mean, obviously, if those contracts, some of those like the LeMahieu contract, I don't think they're gonna be able to get out of that Stanton contract. But I mean, who knows? A couple of trades. If Rodon struggles this year, maybe they try to ship Rodon off to a team. A team that has good prospects and it's lost a bunch of games and could eat a big contract. Maybe that's the best way they could afford him, right? If they can start shipping off some of these bad contracts after this season, they could free up the space. But I think some of these contracts that they have signed just haven't worked out. And I don't think even like the Rockies or the Cubs would take some of these guys. So
right.
It would be interesting. I mean, I don't think the Marlins would take back Stanton. I mean, I'm pretty sure if Stanton has a good year, maybe you could trade Stanton back to the Marlins for some of their pitching prospects that way, and then free up the money to keep Soto. But unless something like that happens, not really there. And then let's talk about the Orioles, Nationals. Obviously, Nationals didn't do much. Nick Senzel. On a $2 million deal. Do you think that's a big move they make?
I mean, it might be, to be honest. I don't expect the Nationals to really spend a lot of money this offseason. They don't really want to block all the young guys. You got Wood coming up. You have Cavalli. You have Dylan Cruz, who I think he's going to start the season down on one of their minor league teams. I expect Dylan Cruz to be on the Nationals at some point next season, honestly, and definitely the year after. They just don't want to spend a lot of money to block some of the young guys. You want to keep developing Ruiz, Gore, Josiah Gray. He needs to be better. And I think they're going to maybe make some low-risk bargain type deals this offseason. You're not going to go after, Yamamoto, for example. That's not in their ballpark right now. The pitching market, I don't think, is that good this year anyway. I think they're going to take it a little easy this summer. Or this winter, excuse me. I think they are going to just go in with what they have, make a couple few moves, and then not be as good this upcoming season. But next year is, I think, the year they make a big splash or two for free agency to start that next contending window. I think they want to see the young guys a little bit more, and then I think they'll fully go back to a contending window. And because the market next year is a lot better for pitching, and I think that's what they need right now. The Corbin deal comes off the books after this season. That's a need right there, but I don't think you're gonna see them do too much.
Yeah, I think from the Orioles' perspective, Mike Elias said if you had this on your bingo card, but because of the whole Ohtani thing, they had the largest contract in terms of value given to any free agent with the Corey Kimbrel, which, look, Kimbrel does that thing he does every time he pitches. I don't know if he's changed it because of the whole pitch clock thing, but a bird team makes perfect sense for him. The Orioles have a country boy MO. You have 5 or 6 players from Texas. You now have, with Kimbrel and Gunnar, both from Alabama, 2 guys from Alabama, a bunch of guys from Florida, a guy from Georgia in DL Hall, Jackson Holloway from Oklahoma. Honestly, if you want to see whether the Orioles could make a trade or two or sign a player, check where they're from. If they're from Georgia, if they're from Alabama, if they're from Texas, there's a good chance the Orioles could be in on them. And I'm saying this comedically, but it's a trend. It's a good trend because these are good players, but it's just they are the SEC in baseball right now. But Craig Kimbrel, solid, dependable guy. He's not the same guy that he was earlier in his career.
If you're not going to do his thing on the mound, then what are you doing? What are you doing?
There are going to be fans out there. And look, last year they had the bird bath where they had those seats. They need whoever's in those seats. Whenever Kimbrel is up there, they got to do the bird thing every time he pitches. Mm-hmm. But that's probably what the new thing they're going to do there. But
you said, you were saying he hasn't been as good, but just continue. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So he hasn't been bad, but he's still dependable. He actually, stuff-wise, is slightly better than what Josh Hader was. It's just he just wasn't the biggest name. It's just he's kind of, many people consider him past his prime. And I think that's the reason why people were down on his signing. I do think the Orioles will go after a pitcher. I don't expect to be a free agent signing. I expect it to be a trade. Now, they've been connected to Dylan Cease. That's the big name they've been connected to. It's interesting. With the Dodgers going after Ohtani, does it eliminate them from Dylan Cease? Maybe, maybe not. If it does eliminate them and they are the favorites to him, that would be a nice 1, 2, and 3 with Cease, Bradish, and Grayson. That is a really solid top 3. You add John Means as your 4, and then Dean Kramer or Tyler Wells as your 5. You got a good rotation. That is a nice rotation to have. It's not a top rotation because it's younger guys, but it's a good rotation for the next couple of years. And Cease is due to make about 9 this year and 12-ish next year. So it's affordable. That is a move. That is a guy I'm looking at. If they don't get him, I think Shane Bieber, I think his health is, I think that his stuff is kind of going downhill. I don't think they're interested in him. Rays will never trade Tyler Glasnow to the Orioles. Orioles will never trade their prospects to the Rays. I don't expect Tyler Glasnow to go there. Jesus Luzardo is an interesting guy. I know he was with the Nationals and went to the Oakland A's and went to the the Marlins. He's a guy I'm interested in, but I think he's going to cost more than someone like a Dylan Cease. And then Braxton Garrett's another guy. One of the Marlins guys that's interesting, maybe some, but I think their top guy right now is Dylan Cease. If they don't get him, it's going to be really interesting to see where they go. But that's all I'm going to say. If they get Dylan Cease, do not be shocked, but I think they could go after Braxton Garrett will be another solid plan B. Patrick Sandoval is a former Elias draft pick. Knowing that Ohtani's not officially going back to the Angels, what do the Angels do? Are they a rebuilding team? Are they trying to contend? Who do they try to trade off some of their pieces now that isn't Mike Trout? That's going to be really interesting. So It's going to be interesting what the Orioles can do. And then the other part is off the field is this. I get it. John Angelos is a slime bag. He's a sleazeball. He is a snake oil salesman. He is you just have
to tell me that. Don't tell me that. I know that. I know that considering everything that's going on with the Masson dispute. Screw that guy.
Yes. So there was news that came out that David Rubenstein, who's worth $4-point-something billion, he was apparently with Ted Leonsis going considering buying the Nationals. It seems like his attention is now towards the Orioles. This would be huge if he buys the Orioles. But let me say this. The Orioles are not going to sell the team until Peter Angelos passes away. And here's why. There is an inheritance tax. I think it's called the inheritance tax. It could be something else. Long story short. If they wait till Peter passes away, they can save $300 to $400 million on a tax. So here's the thing. There was an article that said John Angelos told Westmore they don't intend on selling their share of the Orioles. First of all, do you truly buy what John Angelos says? Just think the opposite. If he's not thinking they're selling, if he's saying they're not selling, they are going to sell the team. They just can't say we are going to sell the team, and just in case there's another offer other than Rubenstein. But I think he can ultimately be the guy that buys the team. So they can only do so much. They can kind of line up the dominoes for the sell. They can't officially sell the team until a few things happen. The other thing is the lease. So the second time yesterday, they agreed on the lease, but apparently Senator Bill Ferguson has had concerns about giving some, because the problem has been the land for John Angelos. He wants to essentially monopolize the land for profits. This Bill Ferguson isn't a fan of giving this land to John Angelos. Now, no, and then he even cited the transfer of power from one ownership to the other is also a concern with him. So it's a messy situation. So here's what I'm saying. They are going to sell the team. It's more than likely going to be Rubenstein. They just have to wait till Peter passes away. And just in case another buyer comes into the market, and the whole lease thing is connected, because does having a lease up the sale? Is it what it does? It's all complicated, but you got to figure out all those factors. The state is also considering the transfer of ownership, so it's a giant mess. A lease will be signed. They will sell the team, and if Rubenstein buys the team, Hunter, get this, he spent $21 million to buy one of the last remaining copies of the Magna Carta. 21.
This is going to be Steve Cohen part 2.
He kind of he's basically he's a co-founder of it's called the Carlyle Group, which is like this massive private equity investment firm. And I understand people, when they hear private equity investment, they get a little nervous. Note to them. Billionaires don't become billionaires by being nice people. You just hope that they are not total scumbags.
Right.
So Yes, there's some stuff about him that isn't good, but the reason I bring up the Magna Carta thing, he also donated to a museum, so he didn't keep it for himself. So he bought it and then he put it in a museum that he is paying for, essentially. He will pay to keep. He will keep the team because in Baltimore, because he's from there. And two, one of the things about him is he will pay the players. He will pay these contracts. So imagine the Orioles drafting as well as they have, scouting and development the way they have,
Right.
and a Steve Cohen type owner giving giving Elias a checkbook. And as long as him or whoever the new owner is does not put additional restrictions, we're good. The Orioles will be good. And I think that's kind of that's the thing holding them back. And again, it's gonna be interesting if they are further along in the sale. And let's be honest here. Let's also say this. Going back to the beginning part, the whole reason why they would sell the team is if Peter Angelos passes away, and obviously if he does, it is condolence. It's sadness for the Angelos family, and we do have to keep that in mind. No matter how much of a negative opinion I have about John Angelos and the Angelos family, it is still a deeply personal issue. We do have to keep that in mind. I've seen Orioles fans they're so angry at John Angelos. They don't consider the fact that he is a human at the end of the day. This family is a human. They don't make the best business decisions, but it's just we have to keep that in mind. But those are the two big things for the Orioles and that for the Orioles this week. With Ohtani signing, we should see the market start to heat up. But yeah, we're going to end the stream on that note.
I can save my Mike Tomlin stuff for next week because I'll be pretty fired up about the Steelers for next week's show.
Yeah, and we'll talk football. We were going to talk football more this week, but then obviously the Ohtani thing happened, and we kind of had to do more of an extended discussion on that.
Right, yeah. We'll be back next Saturday or Sunday
next Sunday.
We'll do a lot more football, especially with the playoffs coming up, and we'll obviously do some college football, I think, too.
Yeah, but first, quick reaction, should on a scale of 1 to 10, how pissed should Florida State be?
Oh, 10. You want to go 11? I would go 11. I think they should be disgusted. I'm very upset that they got left out. You can only play who's on your schedule. You can also only play with the players you have. And you know what? They could have folded when Jordan Travis got hurt, excuse me. They didn't. They won their last few games. They won an ACC title game, by holding Louisville to 6 points. That was one of the best offenses in the country this year. And people can spin this out every way you want. Oh, it's about the ratings. Got to have the four best teams and all this other crap. Florida State is one of the 4 best teams in the country. They also didn't lose a game this season. Sorry. I understand Alabama beat the 2-time defending champions in the SEC title game. But you know what?
They barely beat Auburn. They barely beat Auburn with their starting quarterback.
4th and 31, Adi. 4th and 31, and Auburn decided to have single coverage on the backside of the end zone when you could have put 8 guys at the goal line. It's just, yeah. I don't like it. Thankfully, though, this should be the last year of the 4 playoff team because this is going to expand coming forward. It's disgusting to me. What were your thoughts on it, real quick?
Okay, so here's the thing. All right, so basically they were saying, all right, well, they were a different team without Jordan Travis. They still won. They didn't beat anyone significant. They beat Florida with their backup and third string quarterback. And Louisville, I'm sorry. I understand. You guys don't – I understand the college football committee. They don't have the wherewithal to – they don't have the time to watch all these games. Louisville's a good team. They are a high-scoring offense. And Florida State closed the door on them.
Mm-hmm.
So – they lost their starting quarterback and still won. That is, and this is, they have a right to be mad. Apparently, also, ESPN has a $3 billion deal with the SEC. They have a $60 million deal with the ACC. I'm curious there. And then during the entire last week, they just kept floating. People kept floating these videos of, oh, they're not going to leave a SEC team out of the college football playoffs. They're not going to do this. And they kept floating these scenarios of what if Alabama gets in?
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like you were trying to force, like you didn't want Florida State in there. And you get Paul Feinbaum saying, well, it's clear that it was obvious that the college football committee doesn't like Florida State. It's like, it's sketchy. It is really sketchy. And here's the other thing. And I'm going to go one step further on how Pitt State should be. Mike Norvell, like you're telling me, by the way, also, here's what they were saying. Jordan Travis is so valuable that his injury kept him out of the college football playoffs. They sat down on Sunday. Monday, the Heisman finals came out, and yes, those guys are good. Heisman finalists are most valuable is similar to the most valuable player. You know whose name wasn't a finalist? Jordan Travis. So you're telling me Jordan Travis is so valuable, Florida State cannot make the college football playoffs without him. 24 hours later, you announced a finalist for the Heisman. Jordan Travis is not there. So you literally have an award the next day. You can justify that decision to a degree by putting Jordan Travis as a finalist. You didn't do that. So you did not deem him as one of the 3 or 4 most valuable players in college football. Yet you say that this guy was so valuable, this team, his injury cost his team the roster spot. Let me go one step further with this one. So Mike Norvell's not a good coach, right? So you're telling me Mike Norvell's not a good coach? You're not telling me you're telling me the players had no impact whatsoever? You're telling me that the backup quarterback can go screw himself? You're telling me that the third-string quarterback is completely useless? Mm-hmm. I mean, last time I checked, football's 53-man game. There's 53. Yeah. There's a bunch of players on that team. There's an entire coaching staff, and you kept saying if Jordan Travis was here, they're in the college football playoffs. Well, Jordan Travis was out. He's valuable, but they still kept winning games. It's just they have this bias of they need to have SEC. They need to have an SEC team there, and it was these flimsy, poor excuses. And it's just yeah.
I agree with you. The logic was not there for me. They can spin it however they want. It's a Power 5 team that just went 13-0. At the end of the day, that's good enough for me. Sorry. I mean, they beat some good teams. They won without their star quarterback. You would have put them in the playoff, even if they played Michigan. They would have given them a game. You kidding me? They would have had their backup back, by the way. He would have been back. And with how good their defense is, they would have given them a game. And I'll die on that hill. They got screwed. And you know what? It stinks that they're going to pay the price next year because Jordan Travis is not going to be back, and they're not going to have Trey Benson back either. It just sucks.
And here's the other problem with it. Georgia, if you put Florida and if you at 4 and Alabama at 5, you know what would have happened in Orange Bowl? Alabama would have played Georgia again. You want a ratings boost? There's your ratings boost right there. Alabama and Georgia in the Orange Bowl. Florida State and Michigan in the college football playoffs. There's your ratings boost. I don't like... You can say what you want about ratings, but Alabama versus Michigan, and then the next one, if they beat Michigan, Alabama versus Texas or Washington? Yeah. Or would you rather have Alabama versus Georgia in the Orange Bowl a month after the SEC championship game? It's not like you would like Alabama. It's not like, here's the thing. I saw Tech fans complain about the Military Bowl. The team went 6-6. We don't deserve to say, oh, we have a poor opponent. We got a bowl game. We need to be happy about it. It's not like Alabama went to the Military Bowl. It's not like Alabama went to any of these other bowls. It was either going to be college football playoffs or the Orange, or they were going to get a New Year's 6 playoff game. New Year's 6 bowl game, no matter what. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, so it just doesn't make any sense. So we'll end the stream there, but we'll talk next week. If there are more deals for baseball, but also mainly focus on football. But yeah, we'll see you guys next week, either Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah, we'll see you all next week. A lot of NFL talk coming in. I'm sure some college football stuff as well.
Right.